Hey folks, before we start this episode with James Liotta, we do talk about mental health and bullying today, which can be quite triggering to some people, so just be aware of that.
I get more calls to be Maria. To be honest, I've probably made more money out of being a woman, which these days works well because, you know, you can identify as whatever you want and all that stuff. And I've identified as Maria.
We're delighted to announce our newest partner for Legends with Bevo. A big welcome to Ancora National. Ancora National are an incredible organisation with passionate staff that are all about giving people living with a disability a better life by helping them to find employment. They believe that everyone is deserving of living a fulfilling life with no one left behind, and they provide a range of support services to people living with a disability. To find out more, go to their website, ancoranational.com.au. Well, what an absolute pleasure. I think this is about the fourth time now that I've had James Liotta. I think you're probably due for a gold pass now, gold ticket status for Comedy Legends with Bevo, mate.
Is it the fourth time, Bevo? Where's my award? I want my trophy. Thanks, mate.
You just become a veteran now. I don't know what we're going to talk about today now.
Well, thanks for having me on the show. I'll see you next time.
No, I reckon perhaps we start with Maria, because absolutely killing it around Australia at the moment, Maria. And you're going to be here again in Australia, in Adelaide this year. Tell us a bit more about it.
Maria's one of these characters that I do in my comedy work, and in my solo show, she opens the show. So I decided to be my own supporting act because it was cheaper that way and I didn't have to pay her. And look, she's a character that's really well loved. I've been performing her for many years now, like over a decade at least now. And I'm back in Adelaide. I'm touring my show again. It was only meant to be like a couple of shows, and it just turned into like a little bit of a mini tour again. So I'm bringing the show back, my show called Mama's Not Happy, one last time. I'm bringing it back in Adelaide, mid-August in Adelaide, and tickets will go on sale soon for that.
Can't wait. Hey, where did the idea come about, though, from Maria, for those people that don't know?
My mum. Well, my mum's name's Maria, but then every second Italian woman is called Maria, and coincidentally, even Greek women are called Marias as well. No, look, I've been always performing comedy, sort of suited to my Italian background, and taking the mickey out of our families and grandparents and things like that. And I'm not the only one out there, who performs characters as well. Of course, there's many of us now. And I think everyone gives you the same answer because they always get asked, who are the characters based on? And they're based on a little bit of everybody that's passed through our lives, our mums, our aunties, our grandmothers, and our friends' mums and things like that. So we just bring the best of everyone into one heightened character, I guess.
And how's it received by your family and your mum?
Yeah, look, not too bad. Because, in comedy, you have to exaggerate things, and sometimes Italian mums are like, I don't do that. That's not me, but it's actually really is them, but they don't always see it reflected back. They're in denial.
And what about the audience? You think they're more of a fan of James Liotta or more Maria nowadays? What do you reckon?
Probably Maria. I get more calls to be Maria. To be honest, I've probably made more money out of being a woman. Which these days works well because, you can identify as whatever you want and all that stuff. And I've identified as Maria. So, no, she's well loved. Like I go to some festivals now, and instead of doing stand-up as myself, I just say, why don't we just do a Maria set? And they're quite happy to do it because, like man dressed as woman has always been funny, since the test of time. Like it's always existed, man dressed as woman in the comedy world. And so instantly that creates a reaction instantly, so there's a tension there. And then obviously you've got to have good content, good gags, and, the material is important as well.
I wanted to ask you about that in terms of you've been doing comedy for a long time. Has things changed over the years with the way the world's become in terms of going from being a man to a woman?
Yeah, I think comedy in general has changed. I think, I think comedy is something that evolves. Even I look back at even myself, what I used to laugh at as a teenager, I probably don't laugh at anymore. I find cringy or corny now or things like that. So getting dressed up as a character is always, like I just said, is always something that's existed. Character comedy has always been out there. It's one of the biggest forms of comedy. Times do change, and we do have to be a little bit more careful. But I think if you pitch as a comedian, if you go in humbly, I think you'll do well.
Have you had to change your show accordingly because of the whole political incorrectness or political correctness thing?
Look, not my show particularly, Bevo, because as you know, my comedy sort of reflects my upbringing as an Italian, a kid of migrants, really. And the audience that comes to see my kind of show, none of them are politically correct. So, they kind of steer to the other side, and you get away with more than, say, me going to a general comedy club where maybe I do need to be a bit more careful because the audience, there's a variety of people out there.
I wanted to ask you as well, I was having a chat before to my producer Rory, and we were talking about the whole bullying side of things, and in a moment we'll get to Bully Zero, that you're doing a wonderful job as the ambassador for them, and that organisation is so good. And as someone that's experienced it myself in high school, do you find comedians generally are people that weren't sort of as good at sport and maybe were those ones that sort of got picked on at high school, or maybe even vice versa, they were the ones that are picking on other kids at school? What's your thoughts on that?
I think that comedians or funny people, whether they were in high school or, doing it now as a career, they can be an easy target, because being a comedian or, considering yourself to be a comedian is yourself, it's very vulnerable. You're putting yourself out there saying to the public, I'm funny. I hope you think I'm funny. And funny is very subjective as well. What you find funny, what I find funny can be very, very different. But we're looked at as easy targets, because there's, what's that saying? Oh, you can dish it, but you can't take it, kind of thing. So, as comedians, sometimes we dish it out because that's the nature of the job. And then someone comes back at you to offend you on purpose or to hurt you, and then you're expected to always take it because you're the one dishing it out. But no one's paying them to dish it out. That's the part that's different. I'm getting paid for it as a job to do it, and hopefully do it successfully, of course. So bullying has always existed with comedians, particularly online. It's a free for all. I delete, I have to delete many comments per week on my pages and on my videos where it's not constructive criticism, it's just outright bullying, really.
Wow, that's such an interesting thing. And your own experience at high school, did you get bullied? Is that why you became an ambassador for Bully Zero?
No, I can't say I got bullied in high school. I mean, I went through some phases of, sort of minor bullying. I can't say that I've experienced it on anything long term, fortunately. No, I'm one of the many ambassadors of Bully Zero. There's a whole bunch of us and all fantastic people. I got involved because I think it's something important, and I got involved because bullying has a whole spectrum. There's real major stuff going on out there that has detrimental impact on young people and adults as well. And that's the stuff that needs to stop. All of it needs to stop, of course, but there's minor bullying where, you can sort of like just brush it off, kind of thing, and it doesn't affect you. But then there's some really hard stuff going on out there. And that's just not fair on anybody. And it should not be happening.
And how did you become an ambassador for Bully Zero, and what made you want to join?
Quite a while back. At the time, it's been many years now. At the time, the CEO approached me and said, you're in the public eye, so to speak. You do comedy, you're doing shows. They said, would you like to jump on board and become an ambassador? And I said, how much does it pay? And they said nothing. And I said, I have to think of it. No, I said yes, absolutely. It sounds like a great organisation, and Bully Zero has done many wonderful things out there to educate people in school, young people in schools, in workplaces as well. That's the other misconception. It's not just kids, Bevo. It's adults go through this as well in workplaces. And I think that's one thing we do forget, that we think bullying and we think kids or we think teenagers, but it's not the case at all.
100% correct. Just getting back to your mum, Maria, and the character Maria, what advice did your mum, Maria, give you in terms of, bullying and stuff growing up?
It's an interesting question because it's Italians or, ethnic families, when it comes to these kinds of topics, it's not an easy topic to tackle, particularly if you're a child from the 70s and 80s here, in Australia. Ethnic families are very much like, I'll just, stop whinging, stop crying, get on with it. Even to the point where, ethnic fathers would just say, but just go and punch him in the face. It's not, it wasn't sort of like this sort of, okay, let's sit down, let's talk about it, tell me about your feelings. There was no talking about your feelings, So I can't say that there was any major advice. We kind of dealt with it on our own. But in some aspects, I think back then we almost dealt with bullying in a more productive way. And I'm not saying about, getting into fight. I'm not condoning getting into fights and things like that. But there was something about, having the old school brawl where someone's bullying you, you have a brawl, and the next day it's over. Like, it doesn't exist anymore. Now it's just a prolonged thing. And again, that it's an online thing because it goes from the real world to the online world very easily. But yeah, going back to advice, in all honesty, I would be lying if I said my parents gave me any advice on bullying. There was no advice. And also we didn't speak about it. We didn't actually, it would happen, but we wouldn't go home and speak about it. We'd suck it up.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because like I talked to you about before, I had a horrible time at high school, but thankfully, there was no online back in those days and no social media. Yeah. But now I worry about my daughter going forward and my nieces and nephews, with the whole social media aspect of bullying as well. And like you said, it's not just young people, it's adults as well. AFL players, sports people are now getting racially abused online, that sort of thing. So when's it going to stop?
Bevo, it's the $1 million question. It'll stop when there's no more social media. So basically, it'll never stop. I think we can help minimize it. We can help, bully zero, have a zero tolerance to it, and we want to bring it down to zero. That's what the zero stands for. But realistically, there's always going to be some form of it, but we just have to educate and help minimize it. But, bullies or people that think it's okay to do that kind of stuff or say that kind of stuff need to realize that we're all human and we all do have feelings. Even the bullies have feelings, believe it or not. They've got them too. They just might, for whatever reason in their life, might have a thicker skin or, and generally a bully or a person that is bullying has a lot going on in their life. And that's how unfortunately, that's how they're letting it loose by behaving like that. But you'll find that there's a lot going, that they are the ones that need help too.
Yeah, well said. Insecurities and that sort of thing, and particularly in high school when they're still trying to deal with puberty and everything else that goes along with it. So if you were to meet or have a chat with Mark Zuckerberg online, or whether it be over the phone or whatever it might be in person these days, what words would you have for him?
Why did it take you so long to give me the blue tick? Wow, he's become like one of those people. When that question gets asked, if you had to pick 3 people to have dinner with or have a chat with, who would you pick? He's become one of those names now, because, wow, what would you ask him? I'd ask him to sort of filter more stuff, that gets allowed on social media, just in general. That's such a wide comment. I know it's almost doesn't make sense, but there's just so much rubbish.
Well, okay, here's a good one for you then. Mark Zuckerberg has a teenage son or daughter that's being bullied. What do you think he would do in that situation if there's, say, another kid, or if he sees someone that's being bullied, whether it be online or whether it be, in schools or what have you?
What would Mark Zuckerberg do?
Yeah.
Bevo, I don't know what he'd do. I honestly, it's not like he's going to close down his own program, I think he needs to make a stance for bullying. I think that would be a good start to publicly come out and maybe can the people that are using his platforms to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we could, they could also like start to completely ban certain words that are used as well. But, then there's the freedom of speech and all that sort of BS as well that goes on with it.
Such a big thing, isn't it?
It's not an easy one, and I'm like an ant in this whole,
Yeah. And like you said before,
many of us are.
People like now, keyboard warriors, they can just have a voice online. And there's no stopping them really, so.
Yeah. I mean, what do you say? If you make a certain comment again, we'll ban you completely off the platform. Like, how far do you go with it? What's misconstrued as bullying and just two people just having a laugh with each other online? It's so wide.
Yeah, no,
it's a really hard one. It's a really hard one to stop. Like, who is it? Us or America that's putting an age restriction on TikTok? What is it? What's that story?
I think America were going to ban TikTok.
America were going to ban TikTok, but there's like an age restriction to use one of the platforms now or something like that.
Oh, our SA Premier wants to make Facebook or social media 13 above or something like that. So
is that just in SA? That's Australia wide, isn't it? It was Albo doing that. Yeah, I think like that's going to fall flat.
Yeah,
that doesn't do anything.
No,
kids get around that easily.
Exactly.
We got around all kinds of things. That's such an easy thing to get around. And how do you police it?
Yeah, no, exactly. And getting back to like Facebook and bullying and what have you. Like last year, I had my Facebook hacked, and technically that's bullying because these guys are going into my page and then putting these disgusting videos and ruining my reputation, and now I've lost all my followers and had to start all over again. So that's technically online bullying as well, isn't it?
I think any form of situation where they've affected you and it's made you look bad, could be could be construed as bullying. Yeah, absolutely. That's happening every day, Bevo, to people. Unfortunately, I wish Mark Zuckerberg would do something about that.
Yeah,
somehow putting some device that stops people from doing that, from hacking into your pages and taking it over, because it's, especially if you use it for business.
Oh, 100%. Maybe an easier way of getting in touch with Meta would be a start as well.
Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that.
I want to ask you as well, like, you've seen horrible situations where teenage kids are now taking their own lives, and it's just horrible. Even more so now that I've got a young daughter myself and teenage nephews and nieces. Now that you're seeing young people do this, what do you think we could do better to, I guess, help maybe the bullies that are teenagers or those that are getting bullied?
What I think we could do better is that I think we need to teach resilience as well. I think the bullies need punishment, but I think when we are unfortunately experiencing bullying, we need resilience too. We need to learn that that's unfortunately how the world is. There are mean people out there, and we need to find ways to get around that too. Because I feel if we don't, we're going to see more of that. And that's where I go back to the way we grew up prior to social media. Is we had more resilience. It did affect us, but somehow we were tougher. And I know that could be a bit of a flippant comment, but it's like me saying, I don't want to say, oh, the kids these days are too weak. I'm not trying to put it that far, but I think we need to teach both sides how to take it a bit and move on from it. How to block it from our lives as well, because if it's going to affect every child like that, you're going to see more of that, unfortunately.
Hey folks, do you love your footy? Are you over 35 and want to be part of something very special on Anzac Day in 2025 in Gallipoli? Well, check this out.
The Slugs plan to play men's and women's games here at this soccer ground, the closest to the Gallipoli battlefields during the 2025 commemorations. The idea to make it spectacular, to fill this entire area with Aussie Anzac pilgrims. Vincent Malia tours with the Southern Slugs. Footy, he says, is perfect to honour the Diggers.
They would love it, I'm sure, because it's bringing Australia over there, isn't it?
You don't have kids of your own, but say you did have a teenage son or daughter, or maybe a nephew or a niece. What advice would you give them then in terms of, you know, being a bit stronger or being a bit more resilient?
Well, for starters, I think a lot of kids. Let's just deal with kids or teenagers for this aspect of the conversation. I feel like some of them that do get bullied don't have that courage to stand up for themselves. And I'm not talking about violence or fighting. I'm just talking about the courage to stand up and tell that person, the bully, to kind of like, you know, back off. I don't want anything to do with you, that kind of thing, to stand up for themselves. I think that's one thing we need to teach more kids and teenagers, that it's okay to stand up for yourselves, because bullies can be very intimidating. And if they're intimidating a person that has a weaker personality, that's when they get, you know, that's the easy target. That's when they get on top. So standing up for yourself is one thing about it. But also surrounding yourself with the right people, because if you surround yourself with the right people, I think you help each other and you back each other up. Sometimes the victims in this feel very alone, like that they can't even sort of speak to their own friends about it. So the support, there needs to be like a support network, and that's your core friends as well. I think your friends need to know about it. If you're getting bullied by someone, you need to have a handful of friends that know about it as well.
No, it's really great advice, and you know, I wish I had the same self-confidence now back in high school, and I would have been able to defend myself. And probably, you know, self-defense, I think, is another thing that I'd encourage people to do too at a young age, because if you do experience bullies, then you have every right to stick up for yourself. And if you can, you know, I'm not that I condone violence by any means, like you said before, but
yeah,
if someone's got you pinned up against the wall and you know how to protect yourself, then by all means use it.
Well, you know what's interesting about what you've just said, Bevo? I think that's where a lot of bullying has changed. I think bullying a long time ago, or maybe in our school days, used to be violence. When you thought about bullying, you thought about that guy that said, "I'm going to bash you after school." You know, that was bullying. These days, there's a lot of verbal stuff. It's about destroying your reputation, as you said before, about spreading nasty rumors. And a lot of the times, those teenagers and kids where the end, you know, that detrimental end has come, which is just absolutely tragic, has come not from any form of violence. It's come from verbal bullying, ongoing, making them look like terrible people, spreading rumors about them, and then idiots believing all this crap that's been said. And the child or the teenager just can't deal with it. And I think I do think that's where it's changed. And that's why I said before, a long time ago, yeah, bullying was like, for some reason, some kid, for whatever reason, just wanted to bash you. For no reason. They just had it with you, you know? Because I don't remember too much verbal bullying. I remember it more like, yeah, for some reason, some kid wanted to hit you.
Trying to be cool in front of his mates, I suppose.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, flexing his 12-year-old muscles. You know, and the verbal stuff was like, your mum's this, your mum's that. You know, like it really wasn't anything that, you know, cut you deep. But now it's changed. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think you're absolutely spot on. Hey, before we finish up today, James, we'll end up on a bit of a more positive note.
Sure. Yeah.
You've been a comedic legend for a number of years now. What's been your best comeback, you reckon, to a heckler?
I can't say it on public TV. But
A PG version then.
Let me think of one. What do I say? Oh, look, a common one is if someone's talking. This works much better in front of an audience when it's delivered on stage. But if someone's talking a lot, there's always this common comeback where you kind of stop your show and kind of go, "Hey, mate, this isn't TV. I can see you. I can hear you." It tends to work very well. But again, you need to be in the right environment with an audience, having done a show with someone who hasn't stopped talking for a little while in front. That's a clean comeback. There's a lot of other ones. You'll have to come to the show to experience some of the others.
Well, we've got Maria back here in August. We've been doing a solo show as well in Adelaide next couple of months?
That's the show. The show that I was in Adelaide with last year, Mama's Not Happy. These are just some return shows the last time this year. So, she'll be there. She'll be opening the show, and then I'll do the big solo show straight afterwards.
Oh, amazing. So we'll see the best of both, James.
You will indeed. And the tickets will go on sale soon. It's through one of the clubs, so they just don't have them on sale yet because it's in August, mid-August. But if people, follow me online on Instagram, James Liotta, or through my website, jamesliotta.com.au, I'm sure you'll hear about it.
I can't wait to check it out. You're an absolute star, James. I love watching your shows live, and your Maria is just unbelievable. And as you mentioned at the start of the show, I think it's become more popular than James now. So,
it might be. I might just have to scrap James all completely and just do Maria. I only go out as Maria. Everything I do is just Maria. So I'll have to get her dress dry cleaned because it hasn't been washed in 15 years.
And on a serious note, we did go down some pretty dark paths today. So thanks so much for sharing not only your stories, but your thoughts on everything. And it's obviously a very important topic, bullying. And once again, Bully Zero, you're an ambassador for them. So give them a big shout again.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone should follow them online, Bully Zero. They do some wonderful work, as I said before, in schools, in workplaces. They've literally helped save lives as well, which is just so wonderful. And there's nothing better in the world than saving lives, particularly from very silly circumstances like bullying, which should not be happening. And if you are experiencing bullying out there, you can get in touch with Bully Zero. They will help. And if you are a bully out there, you need to think about how that's affecting the people that you may be bullying, because, put the shoes on the other end. That's all. What can you say?
Yeah, well said. James Liotta, you're a star. Thanks so much for coming on Comedy Legends with Bevo again. Look forward to catching up with you in August.
Thanks, Bevo. That'll be great. Thanks again.